No.
strangeness.
I don't think I've ever seen anything like that. And instead, he opens with his king's pawn, and we have a French defence on the board.
Yeah, so an opening we have seen from Magnus earlier in the tour finals. He used this to defeat Anish Giri as black. And will we see lightning strike twice? OK, Pragg didn't go for the move that Giri went for, expanding forward in the centre. Instead, he brings his bishop out, and Magnus plays a really old move. Very rare move. He sacrifices a pawn. So we saw bishop for knight trade, and if white wanted, if Pragg wanted to, he could have captured black's pawn in the centre, and there wouldn't have been direct consequences there. You could get away with that, but black maybe would have gained a bit of time. Instead, Pragg taking a timeout and pushing a3. I must admit, I've never seen this position before. I've seen the position up until one move back, but this is really rare already, and Pragg is playing instantly, not surprised at all, despite the fact that Magnus, surely he can't have played this. Look at him retreating his queen now. He's definitely putting on a show. He's not obeying the opening rules. White is 3 tempi ahead in development. White's minor pieces are all out. Black is faster home asleep, all of his pieces.
I think this is part of his anti-youth strategy, where he plays very strange, provocative chess, says to his opponent, hey, come get me. But ultimately, Magnus does have a solid foundation. I mean, take a look at that triangle pawns. It is OK. That is very flexible. And Magnus does have the bishop pair. The problem is that his position is very, very cramped. I would not recommend that you play this at all. I mean, I think it's only for specialised grandmasters to play this way, not for the average Joe.
Yeah, I might play like this in blitz, but not against someone as strong as Pragg, and definitely not in rapid chess, where with 15 minutes, Pragg, also with a development advantage, it feels like he's got everything he dreamed of in a must-win situation. White's queen is going to step forward, White's rooks are going to centralise, and the pressure is all on black. How is Magnus really going to alleviate the pressure? Look at black's light-squared bishop as well. How is that ever going to get in the game? Yeah, I'm surprised, I must admit, that the evaluation bar is not impressed at all. I've got to go and research, go and study my openings, because I'm learning something new in this one.
Yeah. I must admit, I do feel that White's pawn advance in the centre is going to be so dangerous that I would be just like so eager to relieve attention and trade a set of pawns in the middle. But that is just my style, because otherwise I just don't see what black is doing.
Yeah, would you get tempted to castle now? It looks like black needs to castle at some point, but black's king, as soon as it commits, might come under some attack.
I wouldn't necessarily be tempted to castle, just because White's bishop on d3 is on the perfect attacking diagonal, and I would be very nervous of that.
Yeah, so White's bishop well placed, White's knights ready to hop forward if allowed. Somehow Magnus, again, taking liberties, pushing a pawn. He's not afraid. As long as he closes the centre, this is just the theme we've seen throughout this season. It's just modern chess, and it's Magnus being provocative, leaving his king in the middle as long as possible, just while the centre is blocked, while there are no open lines. But now the white rooks are going to line up against that black king. One of the rooks will occupy the e-file, and how much longer can he continue to push the boat out like this? I mean, I'm half impressed, I'm half just shocked by what's happening. It does feel like this is an advert for what not to do in the opening as black, but Magnus is getting away with it time and again, every single game.
Yeah. It is solid. It's just cramped. Yeah. I mean, that's the good news and the bad news. And I mean,
it takes a certain level of mastery to play cramped positions, I guess.
But I mean, this is Magnus's sense of humour. I mean, I have seen on some streams that Magnus has done, like that he just gives his opponent literally 8 moves in a row, and then goes and beats them. You know. Some people can do that, some people can't. Actually, I should say most people can't. And Magnus developing his light-squared bishop, but it's looking at a wall of pawns. But still, those wall of pawns that black has means the position is incredibly solid. It's going to be very difficult for Pragg to break it down. Yeah,
and that strategy you mentioned, just giving your opponent loads of free moves. Recently, when I was writing an article just in memory of Mike Basman, who passed away, I was looking at this immortal waiting game, or that was the term used for it. And I think he gave his opponent, was it 12 moves for free? He just waited, he moved his bishop back and forth, then he moved his king back and forth. 12 moves he gave a world-class opponent, and then he went on to win. So sometimes that's a strategy. You kind of lure your opponent forward, then they leave weaknesses behind and you counterattack. Maybe that's one of these situations. He's just going to say to Pragg, you advance, you push, you commit, and I'll react no matter what you do.
Yeah, I have to say, I did see that game. It was played by Ulf Andersson against Mike Basman. And what made me giggle a lot was the comments on Twitter after people posted that link, the immortal waiting game. Why did you make me waste my time looking at one side just shuffling the pieces backwards and forwards? And literally it was like the king moved to, is it H7 on G8?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it just went there about 10 times. I mean, it was incredible.
It's a viable strategy if the centre is blocked, and that is the situation right now between Pragg and Carlsen. So Pragg just centralising all of his pieces. This is essentially what we teach in kindergarten in chess. Just put your knights on F3 and C3, put your rooks on E1 and D1, put the white queen out, put the white bishop on this square. This is exactly what we teach youngsters when they're new to the game. But the question is, what next? And that's what Magnus is trying to ask. I think we will see black castle now, surely. Or maybe the black queen will move. Is there time for that luxury? And then it's up to Pragg to come up with a plan, a productive plan.
Yeah.
White's already got the ideal setup. It's just what comes next.
Yeah, I agree with you. I do think the queen will move. I think we're going to see some other waiting move.
Another shuffle.
Yeah, I mean,
the wait goes on.
Exactly, because I think Magnus is just determined just to put the ball in Pragg's courts and say, you take the decisive measure. If I castle, then it's very easy for White to come up with a plan. If there you go.
Yep. Why castle? Why commit? It's only move 12, move 13. And now Magnus, he's hinting that he might castle even on the queen side, on that left side. And remember, he castled on move, what was it, 22 in the previous game, in one of the previous games today. Yeah, he still wants to delay that as long as possible. And it is up to Pragg. How does he get his knights into the game? It's not 100% clear. I've got to give Magnus credit for that. It's not clear what Pragg should be doing here.
The bar is roughly to the middle, but in game 3 between Duda and So, the bar is already way up for Wesley So. And look at Duda. Oh, he's frustrated already. He has to win this game. Otherwise, he will lose the match. And let's hear what Wesley So said after winning game 2.
Wesley, you're leading the match with 2 game wins. You look like you're having a lot of fun on the board today.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I have a lot of respect for Jan Krzysztof. He's a very strong, very young player. I have played quite a number of games with him. He's a Polish #1. And he's a very resourceful, very tactical player. I think I first played him in 2015 in the French league when he was about a teenager. I think he was playing board 1 for some team, and we played the Breyer, and he defended very strongly. And after that, I since had a lot of respect for him.
And as usual, with a 2 game point lead, strategy for game 3 would be?
Yeah, play for a draw. I mean, I think the first game went very smoothly. I think Jan is not the best theoretician, like compared to Anish Giri, for example. But he's like Simslo, he plays more for the middle game. And I think A3 in the first game was an unfortunate move because I looked briefly and after the game, after A3, Black's just slightly better. So I had absolutely no problems in the opening. And I mean, he probably could have made a draw in the first game, but he got a bit too aggressive. And the second game went out of my control. I mixed up the opening. Like this D takes C4 line is not very common. But I think after Queen B1, B6, I think Knight G5 is probably a mistake. I should just play like Bishop E2, Castle short, and enjoy a pretty decent position, I think, yeah, after Queen B1, B6. Because in the game, it got a bit out of control. Like, I couldn't regain my pawn, and I obviously had very good compensation, but I also had no idea what to do because I had maybe 3 different plans. In the end, I decided to go for the most aggressive plan with Knight H4 and E5. But he's got a lot of pawns, and I suspect that Black's got to be better at some point. Like, I didn't want to take the exchange But in the end, I decided I just have to grab some material. So when played Queen D4, Queen C2, B5, Black was taking over. Like, I was quite unhappy with my position. But I was very happy to find this move Rook E1 because attacking pawn E7, because I realized I just have to try and mate him. Otherwise, he's going to promote his queenside pawns. When he played Queen D3, maybe I should just trade queens and try to make a draw with Rook E3. But I wasn't sure if it was a clear draw. So when I played Queen C1, Knight G6, Rook E6. I think King F7 was just a blunder, losing a pawn. So he should play C5, and then I don't know if Black is better or whatever.
Wesley, it's amazing to see you play out all the variations right after the game. So even after winning, what has just happened still goes on in the mind?
Yeah, for sure. I think the second game was very, very interesting. I mean, I think Jan had pretty good chances and he didn't need to lose. But now with the 2-0 lead, I mean, you should, you know, unless I really mess it up somewhere. I mean, 2-0 is such a big lead in a 4-game match.
It is a big lead. Game 3 coming up. We'll see you back on the screen. Thanks, Wesley.
And while that interview was going, that was recorded, of course, before this round going on. The bar has come slightly down for Wesley So, but he only needs a draw in Game 3 to win the match against Duda, raising his eyebrows there. And is Duda tilting?
Massive tilt here from Duda. He looks like he just wants the day to be done.
Yeah.
He wants it to be over. And actually in that game, Wesley had a winning advantage as Black after 8 moves.
Whoa.
And Wesley, he's played it slightly safe over the last few turns, which is understandable, only needing a draw. But Duda, not enjoying life right now. And I think we've all had this feeling at some point in our chess careers. Sometimes things just go against you. Your opponent's playing great, you're blundering, and yeah, that's life.
Apparently, he's been sitting like this for 3 minutes, Duda. He lost the match yesterday and against Pragg. Today, it's not looking good for him. And tomorrow, he faces Magnus Carlsen on the final day of the tour finals. Praggnanandhaa, he is also in a must-win situation here in Game 3 against Magnus. And is anything special happening with the last few moves?
Well, the position has clarified since we last talked about it. We said the centre was very blocked, and instead of blocking it even further, Pragg did trade off one set of pawns, and now he's kind of gone straight for the Black King, but in a weird way. He's planted his knight on h5. That white knight looks very strong on the edge of the board, very close to delivering some checks, maybe even sacrificing itself. But this last move by Pragg, he's really desperately trying to eliminate Black's knight, which could be a defender.
Yeah.
What do you think of this, Jovanka? He's aiming for 2 knights against 2 bishops.
Yeah, I thought he was aiming for checkmate, actually. I thought that Pragg is playing in a very desperate, direct style. So with the idea of after bishop takes knight, the knight will then come to f6, and then the queen will find herself all the way on h6. And maybe there's a nasty attack brewing.
White's queen would jump out, and Black's king, actually, it's suffocated by its own rooks. It wants some squares simply to run over it wants to run away, but it can't because the rooks are in its own path, and White will add the knight, add the rooks to the attack shortly. This does look very dangerous. So Magnus decides you can't allow this, and of course that would have been initiated by White taking this knight, so Magnus blocks the tension here, and instead it's the bishops that disappear. I'm very surprised by this, I've got to admit, because if you just retreat, if we go back a few moves, what is Black's bishop doing? This is the worst piece on the board by a mile. And Pragg has just said, yeah, I'm going to swap you off. I'm going to trade you off for my great bishop on this diagonal. To me, it makes zero strategic sense, but he must have some dynamic ideas in mind. He trades off his bishops, and now he goes up with his rook.
Yeah, I agree with you there, David. I mean, I would never have traded off that bishop. I mean, I really do like to attack, but also to have a good strategical advantage. And here, Magnus... Well, he's very good, isn't he? He swings his rook to the open line and attacks the pawn. So now Pragg has to take a time out, has to push his c-pawn 1 square forward. And then again, Magnus now has a chance to untangle a little bit more on the king side.
Yeah, Magnus gets a chance if he wants maybe to push this pawn forward, kick away the white knight, or he can just continue and start playing on this side of the board. This is what we call a minority attack. I'm not sure whether he'll go for this immediately, but these 2 pawns will undermine these 3. So 2 versus 3, and either way, White will be left with an isolated pawn and a long-term target. It's still Pragg trying to attack, but he might not get that opportunity. Magnus is starting to kick him back.
Okay. Ooh, important game. If Magnus gets a draw, he will win the tour finals. He is playing in San Francisco. And Tanya is not the only chess celebrity in San Francisco. Maurice Ashley is in the house, Tanya.
He is in the house. He's the resident Grandmaster for the day. And of course, we just can't get enough of the chess action that's going on inside the playing arena. We've got the puzzle set up, which is the puzzle of the day for the viewers. Maurice, don't look just yet. Now, for those of you who don't know, Maurice is not just a Grandmaster, but he also creates puzzles. So it's going to be interesting and fun to watch how he approaches this one. This one's for our viewers and players for the day, Maurice. It's super tough. Just a heads up, David said it's one of the toughest mate in twos. All the best. I'm going to start your time. Take us through how you approach this position. Good luck.
It's not good when David Howell says this is one of the toughest made in twos, but I do solve a lot of puzzles. I do create a lot of puzzles myself. Made in twos, without even looking at the puzzle, they have one fundamental secret. And that fundamental secret is that your move must either threaten mate or it has to be Zugzwang. That's it. So whenever you look at a puzzle, that's the deal. So looking at this, it looks very clean. A lot of times these puzzles are messy, but my eye immediately goes to the H8 square. Like if I could play Queen H8 and mate somehow, that looks like it should be the solution. So I want to play Queen A8. And if you play King takes, I have Queen takes D5. That looks really good. The knight moves away. Queen D5 is also. But wait, there's knight of
Knight F6.
Queen A. Knight F6 is
45 seconds.
Knight F6 is a problem. I don't see a mate. I don't. Also, even with my Queen A8, why isn't this Rook on H6 working? The Rook usually you don't have any kind of. Yeah, usually have any kind of superfluous pieces. The Rook doesn't make sense on the H6 square. I'm not really sure why it's sitting there. Rook H4, these look like ugly moves to play. Queen E1 is also a problem I have to have a response to. Queen 8 looks so perfect.
75 seconds. Is that your answer, Maurice? Do you want to go with Queen 8?
Wait, no. Hold on. Wait a second. Queen F1? Queen F1, oh, that's nice. That's actually quite nice. Queen F1, because after Queen F1, the move that you have to worry about is King takes, but there's this beautiful move, Queen F5. The bishop is pinning the rook on D5, the rook is pinning the queen, and now the rook on H6 is in play, it's pinning the pawn on G6. Queen F1, that's the kind of move you want to play. That is sexy as ever. Queen F1, yeah, I don't see. Queen takes rook, I can take, it's mate. The knight can't move because of Queen F6. Oh. The Rook C5 is Queen F4. That's ball game.
Wait, is Queen F1 your answer?
Queen F1. It's got to be. That's what you make a puzzle for. This is satisfying. This one is beautiful. Queen F1 is crushing with the queen with three mates. F4, F5, and F6. You can't beat that. That's nasty.
Wow. Okay, David, we don't know what the answer is. Maurice has come up with Queen F1. Kaya, David, Jovanka, tell us if that's the right move.
David.
Well, Maurice is the man. He's got it. Queen F1 and Queen F5, especially the second move.
That's what's
super satisfying.
That's how you do it.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well done,
Queen F1.
Queen F1 is beautiful. That's a puzzle.
Oh, that's fantastic. I love that segment. And Maurice Ashley is such a legendary Grandmaster. He's really praising your puzzle, David.
Yeah, but I've got to praise Maurice. He's put out a great course on chessboard recently about chess geometry, so I had no doubt he would solve this. The geometry in this puzzle was the key, and also shout out to Maurice because I grew up watching his commentary. I remember my first VHS tape was him commentating with Danny King on a game, I think in 1994. So yeah, one of my favorite players, commentators, great person.
Yeah. Fantastic. And even, that's not often you hear in chess, it's a sexy answer to this puzzle.
I like that. That's nasty.
Yeah.
And I also have to say a big congratulations to everyone on Twitter who has
there been
in the
people?
answer. Yes.
Wow.
I mean, it's really lovely to see. Like, first of all, as the minutes tick in, people weren't getting it. And then as the time kind of started going, people started working it out. And they were like, yes, it's Queen F1 with this beautiful Queen F5 check. It's very rare that you allow a check and then you deliver a checkmate.
Yeah.
That's so unheard of. But also big shout out to the composer. 1877.
1877.
Charles Alexander Ginsberg. Man, wow. Just to have the creativity to compose that. And basically, I'm also going to shout out to all the chess composers out there as well. You know, you guys are just entertaining us chess players on a regular basis.
And would this be a good moment to show the answer, maybe? So the players, they're just manoeuvring at the moment, nothing too dramatic happening on the board. We will update you guys with the developments of Pragg against Carlsen. But maybe now is the right moment to show what Maurice had solved. This was the mate in two that we gave everyone. Well done to everyone for trying. But as Maurice showed, it's actually very difficult to trap this king in the center of the board. The only way to mate it in 2 moves is to retreat the white queen. This is so counterintuitive to bring it back the whole way. Firstly, you protect your rook. So black's queen, for example, if it takes this rook, now this would end in checkmate. There's nowhere for the king to run. The black knight, if it had moved, would allow the white queen to come up to f6. This is another thing that Maurice mentioned. There's a mate on f6 in this scenario. The king is trapped. And the key, the most beautiful checkmate is here. Black can actually take a knight with check, hitting the white king, but you block a check with a checkmate. This never, ever happens, but you drop your queen on f5, and this is checkmate. It's a triple pin. The black rook can't take the white queen because it is pinned along this diagonal. The black queen can't take the white queen because of a pin along this line, and the black pawn cannot take the white queen because of a pin along the 6th rank. So this is just a beautiful finish and something you'll very, very rarely see. Well done to Maurice and all of those at home who solved it.
That is chess art. That is just beautiful and super difficult. So shout out to everyone who was able to figure it out. And we hope you enjoyed it, trying to solve it, even if you were able to. Even Grandmasters struggle with that one. And then this one, I know you showed it to Magnus once as well. Did he solve it?
I think, yes, he did solve it, but I think it took him about the same time as Maurice. So it's really instructive. Maurice, he's very experienced at problem solving and the way to think. We saw his thought process there. He's looking at various moves, but then he sees defensive resources, and it's the same in chess. You see your opponent's ideas, you see yours, and it's just putting them in the right order, making them all fit together nicely. So Magnus solved it. The quickest player I've ever seen solve it was Anish Giri.
Really?
He solved it in maybe 30 seconds, maybe even less. So that was very impressive.
Yeah, but he solved it too quickly. I think that he'd seen it before.
Maybe.
Sorry, Anish.
And meanwhile, this game is heating up slightly. We have had a few developments since we last discussed the position. Let's jump in to show what has happened. Magnus now is pushing pawns on that left side. But we left it here, and we said that the white knight was very strong. It's a potentially powerful attacker, so Magnus tried to kick it back. And actually, this knight had no good retreat squares. If the knight steps back immediately, then black creates a pin. You pin and you win material here. The white rook is doomed. So instead, Pragg had to be really creative in order to save his knight. He stepped back with his rook, and now actually the knight might be poisoned. If you take it, you allow the white queen to swoop in, and the black king now in mortal danger. So Magnus decided, in a situation where he just wants to draw, this was too risky, he moved his king across to defend the h6 pawn. This was another pin that Pragg reinstated, and suddenly we saw a pawn move, the knight jumping in, getting traded off, and now, yes, Pragg is trying to swing his rook across, but there's no clear way in towards the black king. Therefore, Magnus decided there's time to simply push pawns and, again, to push once more. And we do see this minority attack. Now this one pawn is undermining 2 pawns, and white will be left with a weakness on this side. That's guaranteed now. White will be left with an isolated pawn. Long term, black is doing very, very well. Pragg has to deliver checkmate. Otherwise, he's going to crash to another defeat in this game. You have to go for the black king somehow. It's not easy, however.
Yeah, and that's why he stepped up with his rook 1 square in order to defend the weak point on c3. And I agree with you, look, the computer says it's better for black, but 2 humans playing, Magnus still very much on the defensive. If he makes one wrong move, that's it. Praggnanandhaa's attack will just crash through.
Yeah. Pragg's idea, I think, is to swing one of his rooks across, maybe even both rooks across, and to try and break through on this g6 square, to try and sacrifice here. The white queen is on a great diagonal in terms of attacking, so she's doing a multi-purpose job. She's holding some pawns together. She's eyeing up the black king. And, Magnus still has a couple of accurate moves to find in order to kind of cement his advantage. If he takes a timeout and just moves a rook, for example, then already it gets very scary. You're right about this, Jovanka. If you move the rook again, for example, just to illustrate the point, suddenly the white rook shuffles across, and there's the threat of a breakthrough, a rook sacrifice on this square. Again, just to show this, Suddenly the white queen could swoop in. Queen takes pawn, delivering checkmate and winning this rook as well. Yeah, this is actually very, very scary to deal with. Magnus, however, goes very direct and he tries to skewer these rooks. He allows the white knight in, though.
I was going to say that. You know, immediately I would just put that knight on f6, give a check to the king, and let the rest work itself out. So the king will move. Probably will step to the g7 square, as you've highlighted. And, OK, where's the way to put pressure on the black position?
Yeah, I worry for Pragg because maybe white's best is to actually repeat the position. White, for example, could jump back with the knight, hoping that the knight is captured because suddenly lines would open up towards the black king. This is not what Magnus wants. But the problem for Pragg is after the knight drops back, you don't have to take it. You can just sidestep again. And we might see a dance between the knight and king, a check, a sidestep, a check, a sidestep, and the game might be a draw. If you don't go for this, maybe you're just losing as Pragg. Because remember, there is this skewer of the rooks.
Yeah, but a draw is the same as a loss. So that option, you just cannot play it. Yeah. You just have to do something else. I mean, is there anything else? I mean, for instance, move the rook on. I know, that's the problem. Can you
move it across?
Move it across, and after bishop takes rook.
Just one move too slow, for example. OK, I was going to say he could try stepping this pawn forward, trying to break through with a sacrifice here. But black's bishop is just in time to come back and block.
Yeah.
And, OK, he's going for that immediately, Pragg. He's pushed his pawn forward. But what is happening here? Bishop takes rook, looks like an automatic.
It does look like an automatic, and I'm guessing that the rook will then slide over to the g3 square, and there is some pressure on the g6 pawn. But again, it feels like it's too slow after bishop takes pawn. Is that possible?
Yeah, bishop takes pawn, rook takes, and suddenly this is ending in checkmate because the white queen does jump in just in time to support her knight. And look at this, the kiss of death, trapped in the corner. So there is still significant danger in the position. Pragg, OK, yes, it's not working according to a computer, but he's setting some very difficult traps here for a human to navigate. Magnus does take the rook, but how is he going to deal with this mating attack once the rook slides over? Rook takes pawn is devastating if it happens.
Yeah.
OK, the evaluation bar says black is still in charge. How narrow is the path, though? Pragg has to slide over with his rook. What is he thinking about? He's a whole rook down. This is the current position, and you cannot take this bishop. You cannot take this piece because you are pinned along the c-file. So you just have to move over. What is he even thinking about here, Pragg?
Well, he's probably considering whether he can play pawn takes pawn. Is that something? I mean, I'm just looking at the checks and the captures. So pawn takes pawn, and then the idea is, OK, take the rook and then capture the pawn again.
Yeah, to try and creep in with the white queen. Maybe possible, although it feels like it shouldn't work. For example, black can just defend against any checks. Black's king as well, ready to start running. You've given up 2 rooks here for white. He does go for this, however, Pragg. I'm fascinated to know what was happening after the rook moved across towards the black king. That looked very dangerous to me, but Pragg didn't go for it. Instead, he takes a pawn. He's giving up 2 rooks to try and win this game, Pragg. And can Magnus get greedy? Can he take a second rook? That is the question. I think he can. I think Magnus can just call Pragg's bluff here. Maybe there's better, but what can white play?
OK. So I just checked, and apparently the best move is actually to capture the pawn. But Magnus, if he's in a peaceful mood, he can actually just capture the rook, and the game will fizz out into a draw.
OK, and that will clinch today's match for Magnus Carlsen. So if black does take the white rook, then white's knight can actually retreat to h5, and there'll be a checking sequence that black cannot escape, perpetual check, and a draw. But that doesn't help Pragg. Maybe Pragg knows it as well. Magnus looks pretty calm, considering he's being attacked in such a brutal manner.
There is massive drama going on right now. Magnus is looking like he will decide the match and be the winner of the tour finals. Arjun Erigaisi has already, after 3 games, won the match against Liam Le. And Shahryar Mamedyarov has right now decided the match against Anish Giri, winning another game. Mamedyarov, Giri loses that match in 3 games. And actually, Wesley So could also be about to decide the match against Duda. What a day.
Yeah, it's completely unexpected, actually. I mean, going into this day, honestly thought that we would see tie breaks, we would perhaps even see Armageddon. And I thought that the match between Duda and So would be so closely fought that they would perhaps, one person would win, another person would win, it would go down to the wire. And I did not ever dream that all 4 matches would end in 3 games. That, for me, is the shock.
It's
biggest
a huge
shock ever.
And of course, the biggest match win will be for Magnus Carlsen, not only winning the match against Pragg, but also winning the tour finals. What do you think, David, will be the result in the game? Do you think Magnus will win it?
Yes, he's got a load of time on his clock. He's got almost 6 minutes. There's not that much calculation to be done. The first move you look at is taking White's rook off the board, being greedy, why not? And once you see that White has nothing more than a perpetual check, you go for it. I think the only thing that might stop Magnus from taking White's rook is if he really wants to win, because he's feeling super confident. But a draw is enough in the match right now. So I think we'll see Magnus pause for another minute or so. He'll take the rook and we'll see the game fizzle out. And it's all psychology today. We see Duda, who's a broken man, especially after yesterday's defeat. He's collapsed today against Wesley So. Giri feels broken as well. Also, the ghosts of that game last month that Mamedyarov destroyed Giri, that kind of best game of his career, as he described it, I think that's played a part in their match today. And Erigaisi, he's on a hot streak. He won his match. It's just momentum in chess. At the top level, it's all these 2-3% that you gain by being confident, or that you lose by being despondent. And yeah, right now that's really showing in these one-sided matches, these results. Yeah, Magnus, we're expecting him to take the white rook. As you said, you can just take this pawn back as well. You're completely fine as black. But not too much more calculation to be done.
No need to go into the depths when bishop takes rook. Secures the draw.
Yeah, and we'll show this one more time, maybe just on the analysis board. OK, he has gone for it, and we might see a result any moment soon. The rook has disappeared. White has nothing better than a check. The black king will retreat. Another check. The black king will move, and a dance between the king and knight. This will end in a draw. And let's go back to the players. We'll see a result. We'll see Magnus confirmed as the winner of the tournament. If Pragg repeats moves, anything else for White, and you're just 2 rooks down. So I don't think you can carry on safely.
Will we see a celebration for Magnus, do you think, after this game?
We'll see a smile.
Yeah.
I have a feeling. He won't celebrate till the end of tomorrow when the tournament is done, but now it's pretty much confirmed. If White brings his knight back to give a check, the position will repeat itself for a 3rd time. And there we go. It's a draw. Magnus beats Pragg.
Magnus Carlsen is the winner of this match. He is the winner of the Meltwater Champions Chess Tour 2022, and he is the winner of the Tour Finals. What a tournament it's been for the world #1. He's almost unbeaten.